Hello everyone, Voodoo here. So I'm here today with a little bit of an update. We did have some nerfs and some buffs come out yesterday to things that demon hunters care about. We had some buffs to Havoc and Vengeance and some nerfs to some trinkets. So like I always do, here I am going over it. I was busy yesterday, so I didn't get the video out. So we're getting it today instead. All things told, not very large changes, but we'll get into it as we go along here. So of course, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like button, hit the sub, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what's up. So the first thing that came through, we'll go over all of them in order. I have like 3 Wowhead articles here. Is that Igneous Flowstone Trinket was nerfed by, it says at least 50%, but it's going to be more than that for melee. So we scroll down here. This is what the change was. So they cut the crit from low tide in half, which is kind of crazy. And they also cut the damage from high tide by 50% just in general. And it's reduced further if the wave doesn't travel 20 yards, which means us in melee will never be 20 yards away from the boss, which means that the damage the high tide proc does is essentially almost zero. So it's much less. So this trinket is absolutely dead for us now. Beforehand, the crit was about 85% of a trinket's value, and the high tide was about 85% of a trinket's value. So you get almost over. So 85 and 85 makes about 170, 180. So you get almost 2 trinkets worth. So it was a pretty big trinket. Now we're never going to want it, which is good. It was going to be rough to get, but it is a pretty big nerf for us. It was our best AoE and single target trinket by a pretty large margin. This is a net nerf. Now, that was not the only trinket nerfs that came through. If we go over here, we also had nerfs to the clash trinkets and anything that procs from hasted. Now, this is less of a nerf, more of a design change decision. So all these trinkets here before could proc, not Enduring Dreadplate, but these 3 here were all hasted procs. Basically, what an RPPM is, it's basically how many procs per minute you get of that trinket. So before, all these trinkets were, let's say, like 1 plus haste. So you'd always get 1 proc per minute, and then it would increase based on your haste. However, that has been changed, so they're now all just flat RPPM. They're unhasted, which is, of course, a nerf to the trinkets. They weren't buffed to compensate either. Now, ours is probably the worst one. Neltharian's called a Chaos. But it was looking to be a good enough trinket for us. We'll probably still play it in AoE. There's a chance there. But we're not going to use it on single target anymore, which is a pretty big deal. Big one was that the Warlock one was nerfed too, although this isn't really that big of a nerf to the Warlock one. But overall, like, things were changed here. Scream Black Dragon Scale nerfed. This crit increase is probably not going to make it that much better. This trinket's pretty bad, all things considered. And then we're probably not going to use Call to Chaos in Raid anymore, but it's looking to be a pretty decent trinket for AoE. Now, those things happened and people were dooming. So then we got another post here about class tuning. So you see here DH, and that is what we are here for today, right? We care about Demon Hunters. So scroll down here. We have buffs to both Havoc and Vengeance. Now, shout out for the Havoc Discord side to people like Shad, people like Bees, people like TXT and Atran for doing sims and things like that. So we have melee auto attack damage increased by 10%. This works out to be roughly a 0.6% buff with Wind Fury and a 0.5% without it. Demon's Bite increased. We don't care about that. We never use it. Demon's Bite increased by 10% is roughly a 0.3% buff with Wind Fury Totem or a 0.25% without. So these two together is almost a 1% with Wind Fury. Without, it's a little bit less. Then we have a Fellblade buff, and we never use this in single target. We have enough fury from other sources, so this is like a 0.01% or something. It is bigger in AoE since we actually need the fury in AoE, so we do end up pushing that button. So this is a nice priority damage buff for AoE. Pretty useless in single target though. And then this one is actually pretty good. So this is probably the largest single buff besides the melee. It's hard to say in sims how much it is, but in the new build, we're going to actually end up glaving our demon down and throwing our glaive out before each I-beam. So Isolated Prey will practically always proc against a single target. This comes out to roughly like a 0.3% buff. So all told, these buffs here are roughly 1.2% for Havoc. Now, it's not the only thing Havoc got, and I'll get down there in a second towards the end. And then all these changes for Vengeance here, shout out to Topple for giving me sims and talking about what the total gain is. Sheer damage increased by 10% and fracture damage increased by 10%. You'll still never use sheer. I think I saw some sims sheer is like 10k behind, which is kind of crazy. Soul Carver increased by 20%. Focus Cleave now increases their damage to your primary by 40%. And then Soul Crush applies Frailty for 8 seconds. Altogether, all told, it's roughly like a 2.3, 2.4% single target increase, which is pretty decent. Less so in AoE. And then if we scroll down all the way here, We have item changes as well. The only one that's worth noting, I don't really care about the other people here, is Demon Hunter Havoc. We see that the Aberrus 2-set bonus increased agility by 10% for 6 seconds, up from 8. So this is a 2% gain on the agility there. This one works out to roughly about a 1.2%, 1% increase in single target. So all told, Havoc got a bit more than 2%, which is, a nice little bonus. It basically makes up for the Trinket nerfs. I think we gained roughly 1% overall. And then in AoE, this is going to be a bit bigger because the tier set buff. So it's roughly like 1% in single target, 1.2 in AoE. So all told, we got roughly 2% single target, a little bit of nice prio damage in AoE, and then a nice 1.2% buff in AoE because of the tier set. So not very major things. It's weird they're buffing our generators. Generators for Havoc attribute to very low percentage of our damage, which is why these buffs aren't that solid. Like you see 10%, you think that's a big thing, but it's like less than 2%, right? Because they're just all our generators. That is like none of our damage. But, it's nice to get little buffs like this. We're heading towards a place where Havoc is mid in raid now, which is probably fine because we're still going to be very good at burst AoE and cleave and stuff like that. Still nice to get trickle buffs. Wish they would do more targeted single target buffs to some of our bigger hitters. But I'll take this, I guess. It's better than nothing. Vengeance changes were nice as well, too. You'll have more stacks with Frailty and single target now. Roughly one more stack, I believe, which is a nice defensive gain as well. And then anytime you do more damage as Vengeance, you also gain more DPS. Now, there was another change. I don't know if it's mentioned here. I think it is somewhere. No, it's not. So there are now things that are basically whitelisted for Vengeance. So Fire Demise, the 40% fire damage talent, will only affect Vengeance ability now. And that's kind of a new change. And these kind of offset that. There's implications of that coming out. They're not fully realized yet. So if there's anything big, I'll probably make a video about it. But that is going to be it for today's video. So, let me know what you think of the buffs. Drop a like on the video as well. Help share it around. If you enjoyed the content, hit sub. I'll be back on Monday with the Havoc Demon Hunter guide. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And then looking forward to the new season next week. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. See you guys next time. Peace.